Okay, so a lot of people ask us what happens if we hit rock. So when we run into, when we're excavating and building a pool and we hit rock, there can be a lot of unforeseen costs. We never know how hard the rock is, how dense it is. A lot of factors impact how easy it is to break. One of them being the size of excavator and the size of hammer we can put on it. We've run into excavations where we hit solid rock and there's a few different methods we have to break it. There's blasting, which is a little extreme, especially in a backyard like this. And in this case, we used a jackhammer on the end of an excavator. We're limited, though, in this backyard by the size of excavator that we could use. So we had a small, pretty much as small as it gets for an excavator. So this is a worst case scenario. So what we're trying to do right now is, because the cost of breaking rock is at the point now where it's not worth really going any deeper. What we're looking at right now is setting the grade of the pool a little bit higher and building a bit of a retaining wall around it in order to give them the depth that they're looking for. So originally when we designed this pool, we were planning for a 6-foot depth, but the reality is with the rock that we've hit and the limitation with the size of equipment that we could use here, we're forced now to look at an alternative. So what we're trying to figure out is setting the pool to a higher elevation and building a retaining wall around the backside in order to achieve the depth that they're looking for.
Well, we like to try and keep it up front with the customers right from the start. Obviously when we hit rock, they're made aware of that, and you know, it's generally up to the homeowner as far as what type of depth they want to get and how long we're going to break for. So we can break for 1 day, 2 days, a week. It's generally up to them as far as what they want to spend for extra costs. In this case here, the rock started getting harder and harder as we went down. So at that point, obviously the costs are going to get higher. So you know, we're going to give them everything we can by raising the pool a bit and give them as much depth as we can.
So if the client wanted to go deeper, what would the options be at this point?
Well, at this point in this neighborhood, in this particular case, probably continuing on breaking rock with a small excavator, chipping away. You know, at the end of the day, the costs start to build up. But
would it be an option to crane a bigger excavator into the backyard?
It would be an option. You know, at that point, you're 6 half dozen the other, so you're paying a little extra cost to do it a little faster, or if you don't mind the actual time it takes, the costs are probably actually a wash. But
so it would be what, about $2,000 to crane a machine into the backyard that would be bigger and get more production?
Yeah, and you know, that's something you have to look at the rock and make sure that that is going to do it. In this case here, a bigger machine likely would have done that. But in certain cases, in certain places, the rock is just almost unbreakable with a breaker. But for the most part, anywhere around here, it's doable.
Were you expecting to hit rock on this?
It's sort of a crapshoot. I mean, in this case here, half the time that we spent was due to the backfill that was brought in, and the backfill was full of boulders. Apparently, this was one of the last houses built, so all the material was brought here, all the junk. So we ended up, because of the access in the yard, having to break up boulders before we could even get them out of the yard. So there was time spent on that, but in most cases that can be just trucked away immediately. But here we had sort of two issues. We had the solid rock, and then we also had the big boulders that had to be broken up.
What are some of the other surprises, I guess, when you're building with rock? Things to watch for?
Well, in a perfect scenario, the rock would break off to the height you wanted all the time. Would come off in perfect layers, but it's generally not the case. So you'll see over here we have an area where we had a big boulder, so it had to be taken out. It was too high, had to be taken out, so it leaves a void. And then once we square and level the pool, that void needs to be filled. So there's, other than just rock breaking, sometimes there are additional costs for concrete, clear stone, to actually bring the hole back to where it should be to actually build on it. So